Good morning, everyone. It's Nancy Nardin of Smart Selling Tools. I'm calling from rainy and soggy Sacramento, California right now. And I'm pleased to have with me today Mark Kopcha. He's the CEO and founder of Revegy. Hi, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning.
And is Atlanta rainy and soggy right now, or is it hot and warm?
Sunny, sunny and cold.
Sunny and cold. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Better
we're
than
going to be
hot.
down in the 20s tonight.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in Scottsdale at the Serious Decisions Conference. It should be nice weather there. And we've got people calling all in from all over the world this morning. So I'd like to welcome you from wherever you're calling in. So here's what's going to happen today. Mark and I are going to have a nice conversation. I'm going to ask him a lot of questions. I can't think of anyone who knows and understands the whole account-based space more than Mark does. So we're going to be talking about that and putting things into context. And then we're going to actually show what Revegy does. Revegy is a solution that's been out for a while. It's being used by some of the largest companies, and you'll see why it fits in so well with this topic. So again, the name of this webinar really is Leveraging Customer Intelligence, oops, I did that, to empower your account-based sales or your ABS strategy. Now, a lot of people have heard of ABM. We're talking about that more and more. And many people are also wondering, well, what's account-based sales? Isn't it that just selling? Haven't we always been doing account-based sales? So let me start by asking you, Mark, what's the difference between ABM and ABS?
Well, I think the difference, when you look at the market and where we are today, there's a lot of buzz around account-based everything. And we're really talking about how you market, how you do business development, how you sales and support. And the real difference here is the AB part of it. It's really about being more customer-centric and taking a customer-centric approach to improving these different areas. So, in order to be successful as we go forward in 17 and 18, it's more about understanding your customer and your prospects. It's understanding who you're selling to, what they care about, what are their business challenges, and how are you driving value, how are you aligning your products and services to what their needs are. That's what makes a program account-based. It's very focused on the account. And so when you look at ABM, for example, it's more about understanding what to market to the customers based on what their actual needs are for each individual customer. And then when you take it into account-based selling, it's really kind of pushing us down this path of being truly value or solution focused. Because if we're not selling to solve a problem, they're not buying. Mm-hmm. And which is why I like to say that you can't be account-based anything without leveraging customer intelligence.
Okay. All right. In the end, what companies want is they want more revenue. And if that means that they have to do a better job conveying value, which, by the way, is one of our key levels within our hierarchy of revenue needs. So I might talk about that a little bit later. But conveying value is really important, and it could be different depending on which account that you're selling to. I've seen a lot of research that says buyers are disappointed in the lack of understanding of what brings value to them. So how does customer intelligence fit into that? What do you mean by customer intelligence? And how do reps get access to that?
Well, it's surprising that we still have statistics that show that a large percentage of the customers think that their vendors and the people selling to them don't understand their business. And that's the biggest thing we have to overcome if we're going to continue to be successful and drive revenue, right? There are, the critical aspect of growing revenue is the customer intelligence, because customers are more educated and they're much more careful in the way they buy and what they buy, mm-hmm. right? So for both new and existing customers, they really want you to show them a path to value, and you can't do that unless you understand their business and where they're going, right? So understanding their business, you can show a path to value and identify opportunities that you have with that customer that fit within their business goals. And the reality is those opportunities, when you do that, are much more highly qualified. They're better opportunities for you to be involved in, and especially where your key accounts are concerned.
Okay, well, I want to talk about, well, how do you measure all of that? How do you know whether or not you're doing a good job providing value or talking about value? And just in general, what are the kinds of metrics that people should be looking to use that they probably aren't using right now? Because I think a lot of times the organizations right now are still using many of the metrics we've always used based on sales being a numbers game. But there are a lot of other kinds of metrics now that people should be considering.
Yeah, there's the metrics we've always looked at are the metrics about us, right? And metrics about what we're trying to drive as a business. So we want to increase our account revenue, or the revenue out of our key accounts. We want to maintain a certain level of renewal, right? Or from an opportunity perspective, it may be around metrics around increasing win rates or decreasing loss rates or reducing discounting. And those are really important. And the interesting thing about all of those metrics we look at is that when you really examine what it takes for each of those, it all comes back to customer intelligence and understanding your customer. You can't expand an account unless you understand what's happening with the customer and where they need you to help them, right? You can't retain a customer unless you're showing value. And then on the other side, when you're actually selling deals, if your deals are slipping, if your deals are being discounted, it's because you haven't aligned to the value that they're looking for, so you can't hold price and you can't get it done in a timely fashion. Now, there is another set of metrics that we look at, which is metrics relating to the customer and are you making the customer successful. So your customer success team should have a set of metrics that are what success are we driving in the customer, and we measure ourselves on the success of our customers with the same metrics.
Okay, that's interesting. So what I hear you saying is that not only can we use it internally to figure out how to do a better job selling and conveying value to prospects, but we could also use it as a way to collaborate with our clients to measure success together. Did I hear that?
Yeah, so absolutely. You're typically your existing accounts represent 80% of your revenue, right? We all know the Pareto rule, 20% of the customers, 80% of the revenue. So if we're going to continue to expand within those customers, we have to be delivering value that aligns to their business, and we have to be in touch with where they are and in tune with them year over year and show that value so we can continue to expand and have an easier path to revenue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When companies are selling to accounts, it's typically more complex sales, maybe longer sales cycles. It's not as much of a transaction-based strategy. First of all, is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So then with that in mind, what tends to happen is we have more than one person, just like we have more than one buyer on the buyer committee. We also typically have more than one seller internally. And so we may have a team of people that are all working together to try to execute on an account plan. That's the best thing, right? I mean, you should at least have an account plan and scope out, well, what are the white spaces? What should we be selling them? Who are the key players? And then get everyone aligned internally to collaborate and execute on that. I get a lot of people that when I talk about tools, they say, well, doesn't CRM already let you do that? So I'll ask you, doesn't CRM already allow for people to collaborate internally so that they can execute on an account plan?
That somewhat depends on your definition of collaboration, right? We can fill in some text fields and share data, but a true collaboration needs more than that, right? When you look at an account-based strategy, whether marketing, sales, or customer success, when you're thinking account-based, it's because you're not doing one-call closes, right? There's a little more complexity to the customers you have. And it's a team sport, right? You have sales support, you have consulting, customer success, marketing, and your management team. It's a definite team sport. And the bigger the deal, the more people, right, on the buying side and the selling side, as you said. So while CRM allows me to share data, it doesn't allow the entire team to gather information and visualize that together in a meaningful way, so I can understand what's happening with the customer and really leverage that data.
So that's part of the customer intelligence. I want to get back to, what the specific topic of this webinar is all about, customer intelligence, and why it's so important to ABS. So is that what you mean by customer intelligence, is understanding all of these different elements internally so that you can execute better?
Yeah, absolutely. It starts with understanding who is your customer, who are the people, and who are making the decisions, and what do they really care about, and what's their agenda, what are they trying to do as a business, or even from a personal aspect. So it's about understanding that, and a list of people with their titles isn't giving you visibility into who are they, what are they trying to do, and where do you have to develop relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. And I mentioned the hierarchy of revenue needs a few minutes ago. I think I want to just tell people, what that is, because it plays into what you're talking about. And first and foremost, in terms of customer intelligence, you have to know, well, who are the accounts we have agreed we want to go after that are important, and why? And who are the people within those accounts? Who could be the key players? And how do we contact them? So that's the fundamental level of the hierarchy of revenue needs. And it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You don't want to shoot for self-actualization if you don't yet have shelter and safety taken care of. So the most fundamental level for revenue is defining who your accounts and your prospects are, and how to reach them. And then it goes to engagement. How do we actually get them to engage with us in an intelligent conversation? The next level up from there is the value. How can we convey value in a way that they'll receive it and understand it and can relate to it? And then you need to close, and then you want to, self-actualization is really where you get to resell or renew or upsell and cross-sell. So I want to just tell people that if you're interested in seeing this model, we do have a report, and we'll go ahead and send a link to everyone so that they can get to that. I think what you're doing at Revegy really helps people from the very bottom, because and I'll have you take us through this, but you help map the account actually in a very visual way. So you can see not only who's involved, but how they relate to each other in terms of hierarchy, but also in terms of sentiment and in terms of what their own objectives and biases are. And then, of course, you continue to move up the hierarchy. So you're providing really a platform which allows the intelligence to be created, built upon, and then used to execute in a way that you're going to win more business from each particular account. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and as you go through those levels, the intelligence becomes important, right? When we look at what accounts should we chase right from the beginning, you want to be able to look at what accounts have a need, what accounts are there and can use the product and have an initiative towards using this particular type of product or service. Yeah. And visualizations are really important in that from a collaboration perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's much different from just seeing a list of people at an account. That doesn't give you much information. It might if you took the time to study it so that you could understand it. But what we're talking about here is actually being able to just, in a second, kind of get an understanding of where all the players are and how they relate to each other. Much of this has to do with sales process. Right? So what we're trying to do is help sales reps have a consistent process that they can use within their own accounts that they're selling to. So what I want to do is find out, how can organizations know what the process should be and whether sales reps are following it?
Yeah, and one quick note on the visualization. You made the comment, visualization helps you quickly see, who the relationships are and what they care about. And one thing that's interesting, what our customers find is, visualizations not only help you with who you see and who you know, but just as important, it illuminates the gaps. It shows you where there's information you don't know that you need to know in order to determine if you're going down the right path and if that's the right customer and the right time for that customer. So it's really interesting in that respect also.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the process, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that feeds into the process, because step one is you want the reps to engage in that process. Because if they don't do that, then they're just sort of flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of the things that we're discussing, right, the increased amount of customer intelligence and the visualizations, it all layers in more and more the need for consistency, because consistency will drive your efficiency, right? It's a much smarter approach, is really getting to the point where you're understanding the customer before you're making the decisions how you interact with that customer and how much you interact with them. But it is more work, and none of us have enough hours in the day these days. But when you have a consistent process and a consistent approach, you can get this done in an effective manner. When you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, who do you see normally does that? Because that's a good point. Reps have to be spending as much time as possible with their customers. And so if they're sitting there and mapping out everyone and what they should be selling them and who all the key players are, is that usually their job, or does someone in sales opt to do that, or someone else on the account team?
It usually ends up being the person who's responsible for the sale. And it's an interesting transition that happens. When they first look at it, they think, okay, so this is going to take me some time to fill out this additional information. And then this interesting transition happens, right? When they sit down to have a review meeting with a manager, right, the review meeting goes from this painful checkup and 50 questions about, okay, who are they and what's going on there, to looking at these visualizations and becoming a coaching session where we talk about where we need relationships, how we drive this deal to a win. And when the rep leaves the room, what happens the next time they do that meeting, the rep's more prepared because you got through it more efficiently. It was an easier collaboration. You got to the heart of where you need to focus to improve your ability to drive revenue out of an account or close a deal. Mm-hmm. So if the reps appreciate it, the managers end up, the managers, when they do this, they realize that they get this much greater visibility. They understand what's going in the accounts. They can help coach the accounts more effectively, and they know what's real and not real, especially from a pipeline perspective. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the process and how it helps, it's interesting. We have a few people who work with us that coach deals, and they'll say, if you have a platform and a consistent set of tools, then it'll cost you X for me to coach your deals, and if not, it'll cost you X times 2. Because it takes me 2-3 times as long to really know what's happening in that account to help you with what you need from a strategy perspective. Mm-hmm. So the process of consistency becomes important. And then when that gets exposed to your executives, it only takes one time when they get briefed to go onto a call, and instead of spending 30 minutes with somebody, they get a picture of who the people are, who relates to who we need relationships with, where influence is, and what they care about. These visualizations help them be much more prepared to be in front of the customers. And then what's interesting is, as you do these visualizations, you start to see what your customers are doing and get more long-term visibility. Mm-hmm. And you can understand where are the customers going, therefore where are we going to go with them. So I start to get more long-term visibility into what we're going to do with these accounts beyond just the next quarter, into the next year or 2 years.
Okay. Well, we've talked about the importance of visibility, so I want to put this on the screen now and show people what it looks like, what we're really talking about here, because it is different than just CRM. It's different. It's a different look and feel. It makes it much more obvious what the process should be. I'm going to change the presenter control to you now, Mark. And actually, helps people put a process into place so that you're going after an account in a strategic way and then can therefore maximize the revenue out of each account. Do you see the presenter request? No?
I should be showing my screen.
Yeah, let's see. It's not showing up to me. Let's see. Let's see what's happening here. I don't see it. You know what? Let me just take it back and then let's try it again and then let's see what
Okay.
happens. Sometimes we just have to jiggle things a little bit. Oh, let's see. I wonder if I.
Mine
Okay.
says showing my screen.
Yep, I can see it, and hopefully everybody else can too. If you don't see it, maybe send me a little signal through chat or something. Okay,
Excellent.
ready.
So we talked about several things, and the whole focus is the AB part of ABS, which is the account base. It's really understanding our accounts and understanding what's happening within our accounts. And the way you do that is by looking at the customer information. So the first thing is, how do you really understand the relationships you have? And understanding them, and if you think about the team selling approach, and you think about having managers and reps and consultants and a various group of people working on a particular account, it's better to visualize that through a picture than words, right? I like to say, the old adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I like to say in the sales world, a picture is worth 1,000 hours and millions in revenue, because it really helps the team come together and it helps you be much more effective in selling. So here we have a way of visualizing those people, right? And if you think about it, these are the people that we're looking at in order to understand the account and grow the account, and it shows you who I know, where I have positive relationships, where I may have negative relationships, and which people are neutral where I have to build relationships.
Okay, so that's the green and the red and the yellow.
Correct. So the green is people who like us, the red is people who might not, the yellow is where I have some work to do. So it's both guiding me along, collaborating on who we know, but more importantly, where we don't have relationships, which is the gray, and where we need to build and develop relationships.
Okay, I have a question, Mark, and that is, I remember when I used to try to piece together work charts myself. I mean, even using like PowerPoint to try to draw things out. And of course, big organizations change. The organization changes constantly. So how much work is involved? How does this information get put in here? Does the sales rep have to go in and indicate, hey, this is red and this is green? And these are the people and the way they're aligned, because that does seem like a lot of work.
Well, and it depends on how you're structured, but we have in most systems and in ours, the map can draw itself based on the data you have. For example, if you're using a CRM that has a reports to function and you filled out the reports to as you added contacts, then the map can draw itself. The part that we can't do automatically is color it red or color it green. You simply have to click on the card and say, yes, this person likes me, this person doesn't.
Okay, and that's all. That's what that's for. Is sort of the relationship aspect, which is a abstract kind of thing. Anyway, it's not like you can look at data and say, okay, that person likes you. So I give you that. That doesn't take long.
Say again, please.
I was going to say, I give you that. That doesn't take long to just say, hey, okay, that's red, that's green, that's yellow.
Correct. And you want to know, and what's interesting is you want to know, what is their preference and what type of relationship do you have, and do they like, do they like you, and what kind of insights do you know about this individual, and where else are they, involved in things that I may be doing. So there's a lot of valuable information that comes together with regard to this. And what's interesting, if you could have one person who, within this particular account, JA Corp, I could have 3 different opportunities, and the same person could have 3 profiles, because in one opportunity they're a decision maker and they favor us, but in another one they're just influencing, and they may favor a different alternative.
Okay.
Okay, so it's important to have the structure and to collaborate, but it's also important to make sure that we get people to enter some of the data with regard to those attributes.
Well, that's part of the process that I was talking about before, isn't it, right? I mean, it's the consistency. Look, if you haven't answered these questions, then you don't know enough.
Correct. Exactly. And then you move on from there. You move on to, what's going on within this account, right? What are they doing? What are they trying to do as an organization? So here we have a map that shows what are their goals, strategies, and initiatives for this particular organization. So how well do I know my customer? And in talking to the customer, in looking at all the information we have about them, do we know what they're trying to do as a company this year? And do we know where we're impacting them? So what are their goals? What are the strategies? What are the initiatives they funded? And in fact, these cards that are sitting here with the yellow tops, where do we impact their business? Where are we currently working with them? And where is there additional opportunity for us to work with them? So this is where, as I get to know the customer and I interact with the customer, I can start defining my current path and my future path to delivering value for them.
Okay.
And it's an interesting exercise. We have a client, a very large company that's been doing this for a while, and they have tens of thousands of accounts that they've managed. And when they do these sessions and they do their account planning and strategy sessions, a third of their sessions now have the customer in the room. And they've earned the right to have the customer in the room with them because they've shown a path to value, and they continue to show a path to value with that particular customer. So the more they show this path to value, the more the customer participates, which gives them more long-term visibility and planning alongside their customer. So that's kind of the example of where you want to get to as a vendor, and where you'll have very strong long-term visibility and partnerships with customers.
I love the fact that you're proposing actually in certain cases to present this along next to the customer, because there is a thing called confirmation bias, where a sales rep, or otherwise known as happy years, right, where a sales rep thinks that the account is in good order, that the opportunity is in good order, and that this person likes me, but they're not really thinking through it or asking some of the tough questions with the customer in mind. And so they can hear what they want to hear and have that confirm their own beliefs. And in the end, all of a sudden now they lose a deal because they were too afraid to ask those questions and really uncover the truth of what the customer was thinking.
Exactly. And that's part of what this exposes. It's when you have somebody who, as you say, has happy ears. You look at a map and it says that everybody likes me. Well, then that's a red flag when you're collaborating, right? And for those people, when you look at a strategy like this, for those people who are looking at more of a challenger methodology, it's essential to understand what they're trying to do as a business before you attempt to challenge them in any way as far as how you can continue to drive value.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Right. And so the visualizations of who the people are, what they really care about, what they're focused on as a business, where they're going to spend their money this year, and what's going to help them be successful are important. Now, there are other visualizations around, your products and services and what's happening with your products and services, where they've adopted you, where they've adopted a competitor. And the idea is if you align these, and if you can align which products that they haven't bought, and you lay that on the strategy of what they're trying to accomplish and say, based on what products I have available, which one aligned to their goals, and then do I have the relationships to continue to drive that, it creates that consolidated and single view that you take back to the customer.
Okay.
Okay? And then that kind of filters into your account planning, right? It filters back into your account plan, which is now based on all this customer intelligence. So if you're setting up accounts and you have goals by account, how much revenue have you driven within that account this year? How much is in process? And what other things are you looking at bringing to that customer that align to their goals? This is where if I see that this top bar doesn't hit the goal line, we'll go back and look at the strategy, what the customer is trying to accomplish, and see where else we could potentially assist them so we can hit our revenue target for this particular account. But in order to hit your revenue target, it's got to align to that customer intelligence.
Okay.
Okay? So, then you have information around, revenue by line of business, if you're looking to expand within those accounts and expand cross-line of business. One division has done a great job of adopting your solution, but you want to move to other divisions within the organization, right? Or you want to look at where the opportunities lie, right? So you can look at all this different data and then tie it back to that intelligence about the customer or the account. And you can also kind of score your relationship at different points in time. So in this case, what is my relationship score and where am I strong and weak, right? I may be very strong with, market position and relationship, but we need to work on perceived value and how much we talk to them and how much we do planning with them. So there are customers where you have a strong relationship, but you don't jointly plan, and that's something we want to work on.
Okay.
So a good set of tools is going to help you not only collect that account-based intelligence, but leverage that into where you should focus with the client, and then building the intelligence and the activity plans around that so that all of your team is approaching the client in the same manner.
Okay.
Okay? So that's kind of a very high level of how we leverage some of this intelligence and use it so that we can keep track of our key accounts. We know what's happening. We know what they're going to do next, how we continue to satisfy them and make them loyal customers for a long period of time. In addition to that, how we gather that customer intelligence to open up new accounts so that we're more pointed in our marketing approach and we're not more pointed in our sales approach to specifically what they're going to respond positively to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love, the visuals. I think anyone who uses CRM will understand quickly that this is insight that you can't get very easily with the CRM by itself. It just takes too much time. And I love the current opportunities chart with the size of the bubbles and the colors. Again, it really helps. But I do have a question about the CRM and how it feeds in together, because it looks like this is your own platform that we're seeing. Can reps get access to it through, say, Salesforce or Dynamics?
Yeah, so when you're working on an account, you have a choice, right? You're right. I'm showing it to you in a Revegy platform, and as you can see by the way it looks, it's a mobile platform where you can do this in. But you can also have these images embedded inside your CRM right on the page. So right on your account page, you can have the maps and the plans and the different things that I've shown you, and that's a choice our customers make. And I'll tell you, probably 70% of them will embed this onto the page, and whether it's Salesforce, Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, they'll want it embedded and sitting right on the account page or right on the opportunity page.
Yep, that's what I see on our side too when we talk to companies. They want their sales reps using the CRM. They don't really want them going to lots of different types of platforms. So, okay, so that will work within the CRM platform, or you can use it on Revegy, or you can do both. You can kind of switch back and forth between the two. I have a couple of questions that I think I might just interject here at this time. I was asking you about the data and, does a sales rep have to put in and make it a red or a green? I do have someone who's asking a question where do you draw the data from to produce the customer intelligence? So is it data that presumably the company already has on the prospect? Does it also combine social data and data points from the public domain? That's the question. So I'm not sure
Yes,
if that makes sense to you or not.
it does make sense. I mean, and the easy piece is when you're looking at what data do you have that you collect today within your CRM? Well, you collect the contacts within your CRM, and you may collect who reports to who within your CRM. What you're not collecting is the attributes about those people, right? All the things that we talked about earlier. When it comes to the second part of the intelligence, what these people really care about, their business goals, typically we don't see that collected in the CRM. We don't see people, right? Sales reps will know that they have to go and they have to understand what their customers are doing. They'll look at the annual reports, the quarterly reports. They'll look at some research briefs on the customers to determine what the customers are doing and what their needs are. And then you capture a lot of it through the interactions with your customers and the conversations you're having. So, some of it is collected, some of it can be brought in to the application. It really depends on what type of the data and where the data lives. If it lives in CRM or in another system, we can pull it right in. If not, then it's got to be collected.
It's got to be collected, and the problem is a lot of time it just isn't, because there's no platform for a way to facilitate that. Right? So what happens is, as you say, reps kind of get it in their brain, and they might kind of type some notes, but there's no consistent way for a manager to understand across the board and just start to get important data that they need, because it's not being entered in a consistent way. I have a couple more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll have a quick comment. When I showed the map of what is the particular customer's strategy and what they're doing, obviously we've done this a fair amount. And what's interesting is if you just start something like this and then you get on a call with your customer, it's amazing how many times they actually fill it out for you and help you to complete it. In fact, what some of the people I work with that are more effective with this process, I tell them, make sure that it's at least 20% wrong, because your customers will fill it out and will put their fingerprints on it and help you to really understand it. And the other part that's amazing is how many times the customers ask for a copy of it because they've never mapped their own business out, let alone you map it for them. And it puts you in a very interesting position in your relationship because you've mapped their business. They know you understand it. So it's quite an interesting exercise when you start focusing on this customer intelligence.
I think it can really fundamentally change the way that you work with the customer. And think about it, if you're doing this with the customer and then your competitor's also trying to sell at the same time, who's going to have the better relationship? Right? Because you're actually, I think just by the nature of of giving the client a clue as to how you as a salesperson are going about the sale, because it can seem to be confusing to clients, and they start to get maybe intimidated or defensive, and they don't want to be sold. But now all of a sudden you're working together in a collaborative way, changes the whole nature of the relationship.
It really does, and we've got a lot of examples of that happening, but it does. I mean, we think in pictures, and best practice is to reiterate back to the customer what they've told you. Why not do it visually? They respond much more positively to that. They like it better, and it facilitates a longer conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the most important things that a salesperson can do is get the customer to take the wheel somehow. And oftentimes that has to do with a demo. If you're doing a demo, turn the computer around and say, here, why don't I have you drive? Here, just do this, do that. Well, it has to do with getting them to engage and start to take part in it themselves and not just sit on the other end of a salesperson telling them things. So, I think this is really powerful stuff. I have a few more questions. You mentioned mobile a few minutes ago, and someone asked, are you showing this on a mobile display right now? Let's see if I can find that question again. Where'd it go? Because we've got a lot of them here. Uh, yeah, are you accessing this through the mobile browser or apps? It says.
I am actually accessing it on a MacBook right now because the although it was built mobile first. Doing these webinars and using an emulator for mobile doesn't it doesn't play very well. It doesn't show very well. So while it was built mobile first, I'm on a MacBook.
Show up just fine on a tablet or a phone.
On a tablet, right? So we have to be careful with the way we're using the technology, especially like when you said on a phone, right? Hard to look at the visualizations, the maps, the visualizations of the people on a phone. So when we look at it, we optimize it for a tablet. So if you have an iPad or you have a Microsoft Surface Pro, you can look at the map, work with the map. If you have a phone, you may see a card, but you won't really see the whole map because it's just not effective that way.
Mm-hmm. But like for inputting data, if I come out of a call and I now have more information that I can fill out for their card, then I suppose they would be able to do that on a tablet because it doesn't require a big visualization. I mean, not a tablet.
Absolutely. I mean, the idea is to be able to show it on your tablet. So, like I said, a lot of the maps you're seeing here, I built on a Surface Pro.
Okay.
And if I'm being honest, my 15-year-old son built them on a Surface Pro. I just told him what I wanted.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, that's pretty cool. Then also very has big ramifications because a lot of times, companies have to be a certain size in order to make all of this fancy stuff work because it requires a lot of resources, a lot of people to manage it or input data. It takes, a certain amount of technological savviness, and many smaller companies just don't have that. Let's talk about who your ideal client is. I mean, are you in a price range and in a technical, ease of use way suitable for small businesses, or is this mainly an enterprise company type product?
Most of our customers are enterprise clients, and it's not because it's not suitable, right? It should be more about what you sell and how you sell than the size of the organization. If there's complexity in what you do and how you do it and what you need to do to sell. Some of us are smaller organizations, but we sell complex things, and as we grow, right? So it's really kind of what you sell and what your market looks like, what your customers look like. But we've grown up working with pretty large organizations, and it's just the type of company that we've worked with in the past, which has led us to have a very robust solution. So if you look at our customer list, you'll find some pretty big logos there, but that's just, those organizations have made significant investments in these types of programs, which helped us to kind of create such a robust solution for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
And I will say to your comment, when you've done this a couple of times, building a map like this is about a 10-minute exercise at most. Thinking about what goes on the map takes a lot longer than just dropping the cards and drawing the lines, which is a pretty simple thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. We're almost up on the time, but I have actually more questions than we'll get to, so we'll try to respond to the other ones in the email follow-up. By the way, we will be sending out, I think Revegy will be sending out actually the link to the recording. It'll probably be a little bit later today. We'll be going ahead and sending out that report I talked about that had the model in it. But there's another question, and that has to do with, I'm going to reword it because it's kind of a long question, but it has to do with what we talked about in terms of processes. There's a lot of sales trainers and consultants out there that are helping companies set up the right kinds of sales processes and methodologies for sales reps to follow. Is this a tool that they use, and or does it help the ultimate customer of your solution implement and get a better return on the training and consulting that they invest in?
It's more the latter. The technology this technology is agnostic, right? So it really can be configured to whatever you're looking for. But what we encourage you to do is look at what you're trying to drive. What is the business outcome you seek? And what we will implement in the tool are those things that are going to drive that particular business outcome. So if it's expand key accounts, if it's retention, if it's reduce deal slippage, right? Whatever those primary things are that you're trying to do, those are the things that we'll focus on, that you want to focus on from a tools perspective, especially early on when you're rolling a tool out. Because you want your people to adopt it, and you want them to see value, and you want it to address some of the core things that are going to drive your business forward. So I encourage you to look at it with a very critical eye as far as how you put programs and these tools in play, and make sure that the tools you put in play first are the ones that deliver the most value, and then get people locked in.
Mm-hmm. I second that motion, because a lot of times sales managers, when they look at tools, they think in terms of, what do I need as a sales manager? They don't think in terms of, well, what can I do what can I give to the salesperson to make their life better? And if you find the right tools, then ultimately what you're doing is you're helping the sales, you're giving them something of value that's going to actually make a difference in how they spend their time, the outcomes that they get from a result of that. Basically, it's going to impact their revenue, and they're going to feel like they're getting value out of it. A lot of tools, that's not the case, because managers select them based on what they can do for them. In this case, I think it'd be right to really focus on what's going to make the best impression for the sales rep to help and actually help move the deal forward. And then guess what? Oh, by the way, I, as a sales manager, get all kinds of data and all kinds of insight that I couldn't get before. So it actually, it's a win-win, and I'm so pleased to see solutions like yours that are really aimed at helping sales people sell more, sell more quickly, sell the right things, have better outcomes. So with that, I guess, yeah.
I couldn't have said that better. And I will just reiterate that it really, one of the most important pieces is to make sure whatever you're implementing, you focus on those high value things, so that the reps, the manager, and the executives all see the value in those pieces.
Amen. All right, well, with that, Mark, I'll say thank you so much for joining us. It's really helpful for our audience to be able to see these solutions in real life and to hear how to think through some of these current trends like ABM and ABS. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Nancy. It's always a pleasure.
All right. For everyone else, please go to our site, check out the upcoming webinars. We have about 55 or 60 webinars on demand that you can make use of if you want to see some other solutions and customers of those solutions and hear how those are being used. There's a lot of resources on the site. And hopefully we'll see many of you next time on our next Sales Stack webinar series. Thanks, and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.